What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. So yesterday, we did have financial reports released from both Nintendo and Sony covering their most recent fiscal year. And we kind of have two ends of the spectrum here to go over. Nintendo flying high, over 100 million Switch systems sold, tons of software. And on the other, Sony getting absolutely crushed by this entire chip shortage situation with the PlayStation 5. And we're going to go over all of that here today. Also, we are going to be talking about Gotham Knights. We had a bit of an update around the platforms that it's going to be coming to, and then actually a pretty extended look at the game itself. Guys, if you enjoy these videos, make sure you hit that like button, helps out a ton. And if you're new here to the Spawnwave channel, make sure you subscribe down below and ring that notification bell so you can keep up to date with all the uploads here on the channel. And we're going to start today with an Indie World showcase that'll be happening in a couple of hours. Who saw that one coming? We can see this posted up over on Twitter by Nintendo of America. Tune in May 11th at 7 a.m. Pacific for a new Indie World showcase featuring roughly 20 minutes of information on upcoming indie games headed to Nintendo Switch. These are always fun because typically we can't really predict anything that's going to be there. I mean, a lot of people will say it's finally time for Hollow Knight Silksong, but we've said that for what seems like years now at this point. So I'm kind of the mind with that is I just won't expect it, and if it's there, great, awesome surprise, right? Otherwise, though, I would like to see Sports Story. Same deal there, I guess. But the nice thing about this is typically you can count on some sort of shadow drop, and I mean, that's pretty exciting to have something just release immediately. So hey, look out for that in a couple of hours after this video goes live, and then of course, I will be going over it and covering it tomorrow in Newswave. Also, we've been following this situation between EA and FIFA for a while now, and now it looks like it is official. EA and FIFA will be going their separate ways, and we had two different comments released from the heads at these companies, and take a look at this. We'll start here with CEO at EA, Andrew Wilson, saying, "We're thankful for our many years of great partnership with FIFA. The future of global football is very bright, and fandom around the world has never been stronger. We have an incredible opportunity to put EA Sports FC at the heart of the sport, and to bring even more innovative and authentic experiences to the growing football audience." All right, seems pretty diplomatic, right? Let's take a look at what the FIFA president said. "I can assure you that the only authentic real game that has the FIFA name will be the best one available for gamers and football fans. The FIFA name is the only global original title. FIFA 23, FIFA 24, FIFA 25, and FIFA 26, and so on. Maybe FIFA 27, we'll see. The constant is the FIFA name, and it will remain forever and remain the best." They went all caps there at the end. They must mean business. So it seems like two different kind of responses there. One, a bit more confident than the other. I think FIFA is going to find out very quickly that video games are hard to make. And I know it's EA. People look and say they're not changing much. They're just releasing an annualized sports title. It's still not easy to make those necessarily. Look what happened with Konami and eFootball, right? So I am curious, though, about how this will end up with FIFA, because they wanted apparently a lot of money from EA, more so than we're already being paid, to continue using the FIFA name over, I guess, the next like 5 or 6 years, however long those contracts last for them. And EA said no, and they said we'll just do FC as our new title. And I'm curious what FIFA's going to do here. Are they going to buy a studio, or are they going to just hand it off to one and see what they can come up with? Interesting stuff here. Certainly one worth following, because now we have EA versus FIFA for the different football games every year. Oh, and strangely, we did have updates go out for the PlayStation 3 and the Vita. We can see this posted up by PSU saying Sony Interactive Entertainment has pushed out PS3 system update 4.89 and PlayStation Vita system update 3.74, both of which disable the ability to create PSN accounts on their respective system. They've also removed a number of account management settings. So you would need to use like a smartphone if you want to recover a lost password, or if you want to create an account, you have to use your PC. So to me, this just looks like Sony quietly removing these features so that they can indeed sunset the stores on these different systems like they intended to little while ago, and now it seems like things have quieted down. They're moving into this PlayStation Plus premium tier with all the retro games, and they probably feel like they can quietly push the PS3 and the Vita out the door when no one's really looking. So yeah, look out for that. This just seems to be them doing the prep work in order to get there. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with Nintendo's most recent fiscal year report, as this gives us an idea as to where the Switch is currently when it comes to systems sold as well as software. We'll head over here to their investor relations page. We can see the Switch currently at 107.65 million units sold. This is as of March 31st when their fiscal year ended. That means that a total of 4.11 million Switch systems and then 55.77 million software were sold during those 3 months, that being January, February, and March. And if you look at it, yeah, the Switch now has passed the Wii U in terms of hardware versus software. So there are more Switch systems out there now than Wii U games that sold during its lifetime. Just, yeah, it shows you kind of the different levels these two systems are on now. And if you look at the software, 822 million units. The Switch will indeed, at least at this rate, become Nintendo's first 1 billion software seller. It's never had it before. Even with the DS, it was close, 948 million units, but it looks like the Switch is setting up to finally get to that milestone for Nintendo. Now, Nintendo also does like expectations and forecasts for the next fiscal year, that being the one we're in now that will run till the end of March 2023. And they're expecting to sell roughly 21 million Switch systems. As we go through quarter to quarter, they can kind of revise that, move it down or even up if they feel like maybe the chip shortage is starting to alleviate a bit. But it is important to note that Nintendo is actually trending downwards with the Switch currently from their own reports year to year now. Originally, a couple years ago, it was 28 million. Then this most recent fiscal year that ended 23 million, now 21 million. If they do end up selling 21 million over this current fiscal year, that will put them beyond the PlayStation 4, the Game Boy, and it'll be setting its sights then on the DS and the PlayStation 2 to become the best-selling console in history. And to me, at this point, it's all up to the chip shortage, because I'm sure Nintendo is still looking at extending the Switch's life at least another 2 or 3 years, so that should be enough time to catch up to the PS2 and the DS as long as they can produce enough of these Switch systems. Let's also take a look at the software. I do want to touch on Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, because it's absolutely hilarious at this point, which at the top, 45.33 million sold. I will say Animal Crossing, not terribly far behind at 38.64 million, but clearly Mario Kart 8 Deluxe has the downloadable content that's hitting right now, and it's in the news for that. So I think Mario Kart 8 Deluxe is going to continue to accelerate forward with these sales. Anyway, I do want to go down to some of the more recent releases this past fiscal year. They like to cover them in the additional sales numbers because you basically have to sell at least 14 million units to get into the top 10. That's where Nintendo is currently with their first party lineup, which is absolutely ridiculous, by the way. The only game that made it up there was Pokemon Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl, 14.65 million sold, which is very impressive. We also have Pokemon Legends Arceus, 12.64 million sold. In fact, if you take Pokemon Legends Arceus, and then you also take Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl, I mean, think about that. Those two different games came out like, what, 2 or 3 months apart, and they would have sold over, 27 million units. That is absolutely ridiculous for Pokemon. In fact, people were looking back through this most recent year, and if you take all the other Pokemon games that they sold over this fiscal year and add them up, there's like 35 million pieces of software. Absolutely ridiculous. We also have Mario Party Superstars, 6.88 million. Clubhouse Games at 4.22 million. Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword HD, a bit disappointing. That one really trailed off badly with its sales, down to it's a 3.91 million, more than the Wii, but I felt like in like a post Breath of the Wild world, there would be more people interested in something like Skyward Sword. Metroid Dread, 2.9 million. This is going to be an interesting situation, by the way, with Metroid Dread going forward, because we're kind of at the mercy of if Nintendo wants to report any more sales numbers around this so that we can get above 3 million in the first year. So we have 2 more reports. I mean, if Nintendo doesn't mention it at all, I mean, Sean kind of has a case, because we don't get the hard numbers for it to prove that it crossed 3 million. So we'll keep an eye on that one. Kirby and the Forgotten Land, 2.65 million sold. That is extremely good for Kirby. I mean, it was, what, a week and a half, 2 weeks or something? Came out at the end of March, so impressive stuff there for the Kirby franchise. And a few others thrown in there. New Pokemon Snap, 2.4 million. Mario Golf at 2.35 million. I also noticed Game Builder Garage crossed 1 million, so that's kind of cool to see that one. Now, there will also be a Q&A that follows with investors where, of course, they'll ask a bunch of questions with Nintendo regarding the fiscal year coming up. And it appears that there was a question around new Switch hardware, and we'll see when the transcription and the translations get released if there is anything we can pull from that. I talked about that a bit more on the second channel, Spawn Wave Plus, so make sure you check that one out. But it just looks like Nintendo continues to roll along. The one thing, of course, that's going to be very difficult to predict is that chip shortage. Shintaro Furukawa himself said, hey, we're going to try to get 21 million Switch systems out there, but he doesn't see the chip shortage ending anytime soon. We, of course, have heard Intel's CEO mention it could go into 2024, so that's kind of the big variable right now. Will the chip shortage continue to get worse, or will it actually get better throughout the next 18 months or so, which would then allow the Switch maybe to climb up into that 130 to 140 million system range? And I guess we'll see with the coming quarters where Nintendo goes with their forecast. But clearly the Switch continues to roll along, now above 107 million systems sold. And I mean, coming up on that 1 billion software mark. Make sure you keep an eye out for that. Next up, let's talk about Sony's financial report with this previous fiscal year, again, ending March 31st. And this was a tough one for Sony because clearly they're trying to get PlayStation 5s out to stores. It's just the chip shortage, I feel like, has hit Sony worse than the other companies. Like Microsoft and Nintendo are dealing with it, but it just seems like it's absolutely crushed the production of the PlayStation 5. And this most recent report from Sony just kind of confirms that. It's got to be very, very frustrating for Sony right now to have something that's as in demand as the PS5, but also as difficult to produce as the PlayStation 5. We can see this posted up over on Komatsu. PS5 shipments top 19.3 million, and that's since it released. So it is tracking behind the PlayStation 4 if you launch align them. The PS4 is now at 117.2 million systems sold, by the way. 2 million PS5 shipped in the 3 months ended March 31st. That is down quite heavily from the roughly 3.8 million or so PS5s from last year's quarter at this time. So yeah, substantial downturn. 11.5 million PS5 systems shipped this entire fiscal year. And that has actually been revised downwards from, I think it was 14 million, then before that it was about 17 million or so. Some good news though, the PlayStation 5 and PlayStation 4 software combined sold 70.5 million units in the fourth quarter of fiscal year 2021. That's up 9.1 million from 61.4 million software sold during the same time period the previous fiscal year, and 14.5 million units were first-party titles. That's good as well there. So at least on the software side, they are selling them. It's just that hardware has to get up, and it has to get up in a hurry there. Now, on the PlayStation Plus subscriber side, 47.4 million, and that's down slightly from the 47.6 million. Sony doesn't seem concerned about this at all, by the way, and it makes sense considering they're going into the big launch of their new tiered PlayStation Plus service, and it seems like that's what they're mostly focused on. But let's talk about some good news when it comes to the hardware, because Sony appears like they at least have a plan to get significantly more PS5s out there this fiscal year. They're claiming about 18 million, or about 56% more than what they were able to ship out last fiscal year. There was also talks that in their revenue reports and what they're expecting might be a bit less, and I'm kind of wondering if Sony is basically going to start bidding a bit more to secure these parts so they can get the PlayStation 5 system out there in mass. I mean, they really can't hang out too much longer at this rate. If they only do like another 11.5 or 12 million for this year coming up for the PlayStation 5, that's going to put them in a really tough spot, because remember, this hardware does continue to age as they go along, and Sony may feel the need, we have to do a pro system, we have to do any of these other things to get things back on track here. And I feel like this generation is just going to be a very long generation compared to what we might be used to, mostly because, I mean, the first 4 years of the PS5 and the Xbox Series might just be manufacturing issues with this chip shortage, meaning it's going to take a while for all of this to spin up and start getting more hardware out there. And as much as a lot of people didn't like the whole cross-gen thing that was going on, I mean, it really makes sense now from Sony's standpoint, doesn't it? 117 million PS4 systems, and we're struggling to get to 20 million PS5 systems just produced at this point because they sell like immediately. Yeah, we still have to make things like God of War, Gran Turismo, or Horizon for the last gen device. But here's hoping they are able to attain that 18 million or maybe more for this current fiscal year, get them out to stores, get them into people's hands, and start moving into this generation completely after God of War Ragnarok releases on the PlayStation 4. But certainly a lot of frustration at Sony having a system that a ton of people want. Demand is high right now, but being unable to produce it, that's tough. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about Arkham Knights, as we did have an entire trailer and some new info around where you'll be able to play this game. Now, I've been waiting for another game in the Batman universe for a little while, and the idea of this one being a multiplayer-centric game is interesting. You can still play through the whole thing by yourself, but the idea of bringing people in co-op, online, and all that, it can be fun. But let's take a look here. This is over on their Q&A page. This is underneath the when will Gotham Knights release. That is October 25th. But what platforms will Gotham Knights be available on? Gotham Knights will be available for PlayStation 5, Xbox Series XS consoles, and PC. Please note the game will not be available for PlayStation 4 or Xbox One consoles. They go on to answer the question, why isn't it available on PS4 or Xbox One, saying to provide players with the best possible gameplay experience, the game will release on PlayStation 5, Series XS, and PC, and just won't be available on those last-gen devices. And the only thing we can assume here is they were developing it on the PS4 and the Xbox One. The frame rate may have been bad, maybe the resolution was just dropping really low, or it just wasn't playing how they wanted it to, and they're just like, nope, we're just going current gen now, by the way, the Xbox Series, PlayStation 5, and PC. But they also showed off an entire 14-minute gameplay trailer, and I actually liked what I saw there. I mentioned this online, and some people were like, no, that turned me off completely, but I thought Red Hood looked kind of cool when he was going through there. It did at least seem like it's gonna feel different between like Nightwing and Red Hood, and then other characters, I'm sure, but like Red Hood was punching people with a gun over and over again, and at least between the two, it did seem like you get different experiences completely playing through it. I will admit one thing that I kind of understand that people were mentioning is that there was like this entire loot system. It did look like they were gonna throw a ton of different materials and currencies and all this stuff at you. So you get into the menus, you start seeing all these options, and it does kind of feel overwhelming and unnecessary at times. But again, we'll have to see this game when it comes out. At least visually, I think it looks pretty good. The story seems interesting, and the idea of that co-op with characters that legitimately feel and play different, I'm on board for it. Again, that's coming out October 25th, and now it's just I was about to say next gen, but current gen system on the PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series. Let me know if you were someone who was gonna pick this up for the Xbox One and the PS4, and how you feel about them basically canceling them. And before we go to the comment of the day, we're gonna take a look at the poll that I posted up yesterday, where I asked, will we finally see Hollow Knight Silksong in an Indie World Direct? 73% said no. I'm just gonna assume that 3/4 of you don't wanna jinx it. I almost wonder if Hollow Knight Silksong has been upgraded to like Nintendo Direct reveal territory, right? Like the big Direct, you put Hollow Knight in there, that gets people all hyped up. Or, I mean, hey, you close out an Indie Direct with Silksong, that'd be a pretty good closeout, I would say there. But I guess we'll see here in a couple of hours if Hollow Knight Silksong makes its appearance. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day, as you're seeing here. This is from Croak saying, can confirm, I have bought Stardew Valley multiple times. I was originally given a download code for it on Switch, then bought my own physical copy, bought it on Vita out of curiosity, which also entitled me to the PS4 version, and then bought it on iOS for the heck of it. Also bought a Switch code for a friend and a physical copy for my brother. I saw many people in the comments say, yeah, I've bought Stardew Valley a couple of times now. And sure, I mean, it's not like a $60 or $70 game, right? It was, what was it, like 15 or 20 bucks when it came out. It's been discounted a couple of times too. So if you want it on a certain platform and, oh, it's half off, I'll just go ahead and pick it up again. But still, 20 million sold with Stardew Valley is very impressive. It has that indie or small business feel to it, where you're getting a lot out of a game that's fairly priced. So you're like, yeah, I'll pick it up again on this platform because I want to start up a new file here, and maybe I have it on like a console or PC, and I want it on a handheld like on the Vita, where you're just curious about it. it's those games that just kind of have that pull because of that indie feel to them. But hey, hats off to Stardew Valley. It's really cool to see one of those stories where a smaller developer is able to succeed that much. And ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here. Today was Nintendo's financial report for the fiscal year. The Switch just rolling along. Do you think it will catch the PS2 and the DS? And then what about the PlayStation 5? Really struggling to find its way into stores with a chip shortage. Do you think Sony is able to turn things around in the year coming up? Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.